Without much further ado, let me welcome to the stage James Scott. He is the Chief Digital Officer for Wholesale at ABSA. James, the platform is yours.
Thank you. Just give me a sec to pull this up. I'm just going to check that everyone can see that.
Yeah, we can.
Great. It's almost 12, so good afternoon to everyone. James Scott, Head of Digital and Platform Services at the Corporate and Investment Bank, and I wanted to talk to you about digital transformation for enterprise, and this is in a kind of post-COVID world. And when I started to think about that in preparing for this, a day after Cyril's speech, I started to think about what is this actually going to look like, and maybe this is a bit dramatic, but sometimes you wake up and you think it might look a little bit like this. My hope is different, and this is a picture of Wakanda, and I'm hoping that this futuristic African cities will look a little bit more like this. But what we're actually seeing is this highly connected, digitally enabled businesses really starting to emerge, through this pandemic and into the world beyond. The thing I think when reflecting on this was really around, when COVID struck, and you see this written in a lot of different places, everybody sort of all of a sudden thinks we can just hit this big digital transformation emergency button. And the bad news is that doesn't really exist. But most certainly the acceleration we've seen around digital transformation at an enterprise level, and I'll share a bit of our own story, is really around how do we remain relevant? How do we take this ambition of being a digital enterprise and really translate that into execution? The process of that, which a lot of you and your organizations would have gone through, and it's similar to what we've been doing for a number of years, is what do we do in the client and colleague space, and really that's the big shift in expectations. And I talk about colleague in the same bucket just largely because we're seeing big shifts in demands from clients, but also the way people are looking to work is materially shifting as well. And that's not only at the experience level, it's just, as you'll all know, new distribution channels have opened up, sort of accessing products and services in an omni-channel environment. And then obviously the well-trodden path around this kind of new way of working around hybrid, etc. And then, how to think about translating that into what do we need to do as a business around web, mobile, APIs, which I'll talk a little bit more, and then what does this mean for my physical presence? And then in the colleague space, work from anywhere, work from home, and then really just making sure you're orientated around, what are the big outcomes? And we're seeing a lot of this is that, although we're seeing big shifts in these spaces, what are we making sure these are important for? So are we trying to retain customers? We're growing, we're building better employee value propositions. And so it's looking at the digital transformation through a lens of what are the real business outcomes we want to create here. The same applies in the product and service space. And here I'll speak a little about the evolution and revolution, because, some businesses that had already, materially moved into this digital transformation journey, there is, I guess, an evolution and an acceleration that's probably easier. And then in some instances, there's completely new business models emerging. So the modernizations of products and services, depending on what kind of line of business you're in, and how do we make sure these continue to be relevant. And then the technical or digital enablement of these around how do we build modern products, how do we create these services or microservices, how do we build composable products and services to deliver into these kind of omni-channel environments is essential and key. And then particularly as it relates to banking, we've seen this shift in how do I move some of my collections and payments online? How do I become relevant in some of these new ecosystems that are emerging? And then how do I get my my cost to serve fundamentally lower. And again, the outcomes that really what we're seeing a lot of businesses are focused on here is driving the right kinds of efficiency, managing risk in the right ways, and then of course goes without saying, growing the revenue base. The third one in here, which is really important, is it's not just the technology. It's really how do we start to think about stacking, these technology and digital solutions quite strategically to position our business for sustained growth into the future. And I mean, here we often fall into the trap where we could play, buzzword bingo, but it's really about leveraging cloud, mobile, strong consideration around cyber resilience. How do we connect and build integration layers? Data kind of goes without saying, and then what kinds of infrastructure we're going to run here. The emerging technology space, again, a very well-trodden path, but the acceleration we're starting to see in some of these, the maturing of the technology sets and the application of these into the businesses is starting to look really interesting, and those range from what's happening in the blockchain space, AI, and I think you'll hear a bit of this today around 5G, serverless IoT, and etc. And again, these things are all quite intimately linked. So the outcomes are leveraging these technology stacks, both emerging and current, to really drive efficiency, cost, risk, and innovate, but with the lens of what products and services we take into our clients and what demand are we seeing as we move up that stack. The other really important thing that a lot of organizations have been doing for a while, but for those that haven't, it's quite a big change in this space. And again, you might hear some of this today, which is how do you materially move the way we work? So how do we become as an organization more responsive, more agile to what we're seeing in the three categories that sit above this? And there's no quick fix to this. It's really a people change agenda into working in new ways, designing teams to deliver in certain ways, finding the right kinds of partners. So things like agile execution, experimentation. I speak a little bit about what I call responsive organizational design. So how do you really organize around some of the big problems you're going after? And again, continuing to anchor this on really what are we delivering for our colleagues? How do we increase the speed? How do we test and learn that drives some of the outcomes up the stack? And then, obviously I want to say it's a last consideration, but another key component of this is really like what kind of resources do we have? So funding capacity, skills. How do we prioritize work that needs to be done? How do we really focus on the outcomes and drive our agenda around that? How do we embed the skills? How do we create IP? And this funnel gets thinner largely because ideas, ideation, and opportunities aren't necessarily the problem. It's really honing that in onto what are the things we're going to execute on. How do I go after them quickly and with limited resources, funding, skills, and capacity? How do I make sure I'm getting the biggest bang for my buck? And I think this is important to think about in terms of a frame around how do we really scale this digital transformation. You'll hear a lot of this today, and I lifted what I thought were some of the bigger ones out. Really, the big themes impacting digital transformation for enterprises, and this is sort of an acceleration around sort of everything digital. And for people like me, who this is my day job, is exciting and daunting because, as I mentioned, I think some people think you can just hit a switch and this stuff is really easy to do. It's quite hard and it requires a lot of discipline, particularly in a large organization. The shift from platforms over pipes and products, and this is something I've been talking about for a few years, but this is really around the future of how some of these horizontal ecosystems will open up with multi-participants in the space versus very linear product-driven solutions. Goes without saying, the ability we have as more and more of our businesses move online or into this digital space, we just have the data, the insights, the analytics, and how we leverage them is key. I think really opening ourselves up, and we particularly do this as a bank now, is we're not going to do everything ourselves, and we find where in our stack we really want good partnerships to unlock some of that value. And again, some of the companies you'll hear from today really are credible in that space. How do we create brand awareness in this digital economy? I mean, there's a big shift in how we do that. The design and experience space are becoming massive differentiators, just the way products and services are delivered, and creating, these end-to-end amazing experiences are going to be things that really differentiate products into the future. I've spoken about the way of work already, and just, access to digital and digital solutions are opening up new markets, new business models, and new types of solutions, which I think is an, exciting space to be in. And really, there is a lot of opportunity leveraging these technologies, platforms, and partnerships to really open up the growth theme. We are a bank, and I guess, positioning a little bit around where we would, look to help a lot of our clients and or organizations are going through some of these transformation journeys now. And really it's, bringing our platform capabilities closer to what our customers are doing or what you're doing, and offering different kinds of products and services into kind of more hosted environments, so into ERP systems, treasury management systems. How do we help businesses become a lot more efficient in how they pay, collect, offer cross-border services, etc. The same in the web space, really allowing customers to self-serve, choose devices and browsers, and really serve up all of our products and services into a single place. Mobile is always an interesting one for us, being a corporate investment bank. We are seeing a lot of demand come from our customers, and this is really geared towards mobility, but also, what really makes the experience around the corporate journey or enterprise journey quite interesting. And then the API space, I think, is a really exciting space where we're going to see, deeper integration of banking products and services into client and third-party environments. And really, we in this diagram, what I'm trying to show you is we really think about a lot of this underpinned by a solid fraud and security fabric. And that's important as it relates to financial transactions, but more broadly as around to maintaining and the integrity of data, etc. And I think what does that really mean? And that translates into embedding the financial components of your digital experiences, and that could be through offered up APIs. It could be through co-creating some types of solutions. It could be embedding product and services into different kinds of mobile channels and environments. And, I think that what I've really just tried to show here is that the opportunities are largely endless when you start to really get into how to co-create solutions with your bank. And again, that they're considered a mobile level or really at driving insights, further up the stack at an oversight and enterprise level. That's it. I had 15 minutes. I hope I've kept my time quite well. I'm happy to take any questions.